Hey everyone! October is in full force, and so are these spooky gaming videos. Today, we're revisiting a title so important to survival horror, so iconic, that it laid out many of the foundations we still see in horror games, even now. Resident Evil wouldn't exist without this game, and that is a fact I just couldn't ignore. And yet we in the US, sadly, never got to play it. Originally based, albeit loosely, on a horror movie of the same name, Sweet Home is a Japanese turn-based RPG from 1989 with horror elements. I figured now would be as good a time as any to give this a shot, and see just what an impact it truly had on the industry. For this video, I'll be using the translation patch provided by Gaijin Productions, so that you can all follow along with me. So let's do it. Let's see just how well Sweet Home for the Famicom holds up today. Who would have guessed that the majority of characteristics we see in survival horror titles all derived from one single game? And yet, it's true. You know those creepy door opening animations you saw in Resident Evil? Sweet Home. The severely limited inventory and lack of healing items in order to increase the tension? Sweet Home. The idea of being trapped in a mansion with everything trying to kill you as you solve puzzles in an attempt to escape? You guessed it, Sweet Home! How did something so influential come to be? Tokuro Fujiwara, director and producer of countless games from Ghosts and Goblins all the way to Mega Man, became the director of this game with the help of the movie's executive producer and director. Because of this, it still bore a resemblance to the film it was based off of, including the cast and main premise. But outside of this and a few specific plot elements, it couldn't have been any more different in its execution. The game stars 5 main protagonists: Kazuo, Akiko, Taro, Asuka, and Emi, trying to film a documentary on artist Ichiro Mamiya. They come to Mamiya's old mansion, where he allegedly hid multiple paintings, in this case frescoes, before his mysterious disappearance 30 years prior. When the team arrives at the mansion, the doors lock, and they are immediately trapped inside. They come across the ghost of a woman, who warns that all trespassers will be killed. After this, you finally gain control, and the fun begins. The game's mechanics are interesting. To this day, I've never seen anything quite like it. You can choose to control each character individually, or put them together in parties, but there are limits. Instead of being able to put all 5 characters together in one party, you are only allowed up to 3 at a time. This means that while the group of 3 will be able to take on enemies reasonably well, the other party of 2 will not, leaving the player in a constant state of tension over the imbalance. Learning when to use which character is also extremely important, as each person has a specific item that is necessary to solving puzzles or getting past various obstacles that the game throws at you. Kazuo has a lighter that can burn ropes blocking your path. Akiko has the ability to heal any status effects that hit your party members. Taro has a camera, which is used to take pictures of the various frescoes hidden throughout the game, and decipher their messages for hints about solving the game's various puzzles. Asuka has a vacuum cleaner, used to move bits of glass that block your path, and even clean up some frescoes so they can be deciphered with Taro's camera. And finally, Emi has a key that is used to unlock the majority of locked doors in the game. It gets more frightening. If any of these characters die in combat, or due to an obstacle you could not save them from, they are gone. There is no Phoenix Down, nor any other way to bring them back from the dead. There are replacement items in the game, made to compensate another character if this happens, but you're losing a party member and valuable item slots in the process. And you thought Fire Emblem was nerve-wracking. The combat itself is more along the lines of your typical JRPG setup, with regular attacks, prey attacks with prey points that work just like your standard magic system, attacks from your various tools like the lighter, camera, or flashlight, and the ability to use items or run away. The most unique part about it is the call command, which allows you to halt the battle and switch to one of the party members not currently engaged in the fight. After selecting this, you have the opportunity to run toward the character and join them in the battle. If you do this, you'll be able to use all 5 party members in a fight all at once. The party also shares experience points by getting the same amounts as their teammates per battle. No EXP all items necessary. Fighting and leveling up aren't too hard to do in and of themselves, but the real difficulty comes from how you heal your characters. There are no healing stations or anything like it throughout the game. Instead, the only way to heal you and your teammates' hit points and prayer points is to use a tonic. They are very few and far between, just like the ribbons in the first Resident Evil, which allowed you to save your game once. You have to use them sparingly, and they only work on the character and party members you're controlling, meaning that the best way to heal everyone is to actually get them into a battle with you through the call command and then use the item that way. Speaking of items, your inventory management is severely limited. Each character can only hold 2 regular items, their special item, i.e. the camera, vacuum, etc., and 1 weapon. Anything else has to be switched out or dropped. Even with all of your characters, it becomes a real challenge to hold and carry the right items to the right places and progress through the story. Throw in a bunch of traps and situations where you have to react quickly to things about to fall on you or fly at you, and you've got one heck of an unnerving experience. Thankfully, you do have the ability to save your game anywhere, but even this can do more harm than good if you don't plan accordingly. This all takes a lot of time to get used to when you boot up the game, as this is an unusual formula that's still never been fully emulated since. The gameplay description may sound frustrating, but it's actually part of this title's charm. Think about it. Great survival horror games typically leave you with a feeling of helplessness throughout the entire experience. That's hard to do with JRPGs, where you can typically get through anything just by grinding constantly until you've reached a high enough level to overcome the next challenge. Not so here, where the game finds all kinds of different ways to throw you off, challenge you, and just make you feel all around unsettled. The game's story is mainly presented through notes and other bits of information you get through characters and creatures, making you have to piece the whole thing together yourself instead of having it told to you directly. People who like their storytelling shrouded in mystery will absolutely dig this setup, as the information is not entirely essential for finishing the game, but provides fascinating details to make your quest feel all the more emotional and important by the end. Presentation is everything in survival horror, and Sweet Home absolutely sticks the landing. Everything in this game is deliberate, from the claustrophobic hallways to the atmospheric sounds and music. Receiving dialogue and hints from evil dolls and skeletons just makes it all the sweeter. We should talk about the enemy design next, as it's absolutely vital to this whole package. This game throws everything from ghouls to ghosts to knight armor to wraiths and everything in between. Even their appearances and the sounds they make are quite unsettling. Thankfully, the enemy character sprites hold up quite nicely, where you can clearly see every little disgusting detail that the game's developers wanted you to. I was especially creeped out by the wraiths, and those maniac enemies. Ew. Love it. As you move along in the game, you begin to slowly open up more parts of the mansion. Early on, one of the major objectives involves getting to and turning on a generator. Before that point, there are darkened rooms that you can only walk through after finding and using a candle or flashlight, which works, but severely limits your range of vision. Another objective has you finding some boats outside in order to reach a burial ground. Here, you have to dig up the grave of a baby in order to find a key that you need to complete the game with. Saying this felt off would be an understatement. Wow. No matter where you go, each room continues to feel fresh and inventive. Every time you think you have a grasp on something, the game pulls a complete 180 and surprises you again. Take this sequence with the fountain, for example. You think to yourself, hey, maybe this will refill my health meter or something. But no. No, it turns to blood. Outside of the creatures and skeletons you interact with, there aren't many NPCs or other characters to see. The one exception to this is Kenichi Yanamura, who aids the team in solving a few puzzles and plays a much larger part of the story in the latter half, without going into spoilers. And without going into too many details about the game's backstory and plot revelations, well, let's just say they are very dark, and actually left me feeling a little uncomfortable to think about. It only made me want to get to the end that much more and see how everything would wrap up. Even the final boss encounter was like a puzzle, in that it wasn't just a straightforward attack it until it dies kind of fight, but rather a wait for the correct dialogue prompts and then use the specific key item you located correlating to it, rinse and repeat kind of fight. The game features multiple endings based on which characters do and don't survive. I did manage to scrape by with all of them making it out, but that was only made possible after reloading old save files a billion times. Thank goodness this game had a save ability. It's not hard to see why we never got this game in the States, as disappointing as that is. JRPGs were not really seen as a viable market in the US just yet, and the gruesome nature of the game and its story would only further the impossibility. Still, it's hard not to feel some kind of regret, as I may actually consider this to be one of the greatest and most creative survival horror titles I've ever played. Coming from someone with mountains of survival horror games under their belt, this is no small statement. Saying I was absolutely blown away by this game would still be an understatement. Sure, I was expecting to play something with some interesting features that would later tie into the other games I already loved, but I didn't expect to play something that would actually surpass most of them. This game is a triumph in every way, and is an absolute must for fans of survival horror, and even JRPG enthusiasts looking for something different than just grind, defeat next boss, rinse and repeat. Find any way you can to play this, and I assure you, you will not be disappointed with what you find. The hype is real, and it is justified. And that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know your thoughts on this game in the comments below, and be on the lookout for another spoopy game video later this week. Until next time.